Okay. Okay, so Mary, please keep a check on my audio, okay, and let me know if you can continue hearing me. But if you can't, or if you can't hear me properly, please do let me know.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good afternoon, all. Thank you so much for joining Chennai User Group's first session this year, and a very happy new year to all of you. So, today we thought we can just get started with something really basic, really important that every OutSystems developer must be aware of. So, we thought BPT could be a good topic to get started. So, we'll try our best to cover the entire. Okay, it would be really difficult for us to cover the entire BPT in today's session. We'll try our best to cover as much as we can, and then the remaining part we'll continue it on our next user group session. Okay, so yeah, so let's get started. So before going into the topic, we'll see what OutSystems community is, what OutSystems user group is, and how can you be a part of it, all of that. Okay, so OutSystems community is a group of people who are into OutSystems, who are directly or indirectly using OutSystems. It is not only developers, but it could be business analysts, managers, delivery managers, architects, testers, anybody who is directly or indirectly involved with OutSystems. So it's here it has been mentioned as 5 not k plus members, but it's not the case. It's more than 1000k now. So that's how the community has grown since the past couple of years. So in 2020 it wasn't these many, but now the growth of OutSystems is huge. So the community strength is growing on a very faster pace on a daily basis. So if you have to take a look onto the different user group sessions, so what is OutSystems user group? So user group is nothing but a place where you get to enroll in sessions that are conducted by community members. Okay, so these sessions happen across the world. They could be both in person and virtual sessions. Okay, so if you want to take part in any of these sessions, you can very well do that by accessing the URL usergroups.outsystems.com. So if you access this URL, you will get to know the different user group sessions that are happening across the world, and you can enroll in any of it. Okay, and then there are in order to bring more members or bring more members actively contribute to the community, we have two programs. One is the champions program and another one is the MVP program. So if any of you are interested, please do visit this URL. But from what I am aware of, the champions program has been put on hold now, and OutSystems had confirmed that they shall be continuing with the champions program. I mean, they shall be resuming with the champions program in a couple of months this year. So yeah, if you are interested, please take a look onto these URLs, and that way you can get started actively contributing to the community. Okay, so if you have any questions, by default, your audio and video would be disabled, so you wouldn't be able to speak or share your video during this session, considering the number count that we normally get, considering the registrations that we get. So if you have any questions, feel free to let us know via the chat box. So Mary shall be very much interested to answer your questions, so she shall be doing that. So we'll try our best to answer your questions right away during the session. If not, make sure to send your question to us in via a LinkedIn message. We'll make sure to get back with an answer to it. Okay, and after this session you shall be provided with a feedback, so please make sure to fill the feedback and submit. Okay, and yeah, if you are interested to be a speaker, okay, to conduct any of these sessions, to speak in any of these sessions, or to host any of these sessions, you can let us know how. Please scan this QR. Okay, and if you can do this, or you can also anyways reach out to myself or Mary. We'll be happy to help you out, okay, in introducing you to the community, the OutSystems community managers. And then yeah, with that you can get started with your speaker journey with OutSystems user group. The same here. Okay, And then we have OutSystems research program. So what it is? So there are many OutSystems features that are being developed, many products within OutSystems that are being developed. So if you are someone who is very much interested or excited to try the new versions, the new features of OutSystems, it's the program that is meant for you. Okay, so please enroll in this program. So what would happen is anybody from the OutSystems research team shall be reaching out to you, and yeah, they shall be reaching out to you, and they shall be asking you to fill a form, okay, to try one feature, or or any, if you have already been try if you have already tried that feature, then yes, they would ask you to fill a detailed survey, okay, about that feature. So that is how it is, and you will definitely get rewarded for your contribution. So if you're interested, please scan the QR and you can very well enroll yourself in the research program. And coming to the speakers of today's session, so let me introduce myself. So I'm Krishna Ambal. I'm working as a technical lead with Netlink Digital Solutions. So I've been part of the Chennai user group for over a year now, more than a year now. Yes, yeah, it's more than a year. It's almost 1.5 years, I guess. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this session. I hope you get a lot of learning out of this session. So, Mary, would you like to say a few
Yeah.
words about you?
Hi everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Hati Mary. I am working as an architect in Kiano Consulting Private Limited, and I am one of the official OutSystem champion. And yeah, I am also part of OutSystem user group, Chennai OutSystem user group from the beginning. And yeah, I'm happy to have you all here. Let's start the session. Yeah, over to you, Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mary. Okay, so today's topic would be BPT. So, what is BPT? BPT stands for Business Process Technology, right? But what is BPT? So, imagine you want to run a server action or any logic, okay, in the background, okay? And also, how should that process, or how should that process get triggered based on any entity event? Okay, or maybe yes, let me explain you with an example. So I have installed is 1 minute. Okay. Okay, just 1 minute. So I have, oh, let me open my person environment. If we want to run a process in the background, say for example, as soon as a new employee joins the company, okay, the approval for that employee should get started in such a way that as soon as the employee as soon as you add an entry to the employee entity, a process should begin in the background, such as a background verification process. So where the first level would be the HR should approve. So it's like, if you want a process where even human intervention is needed, okay, so once the HR approves, it should move to the senior manager, then it should move to the director, and once the director approves, then an offer letter should be issued to the employer. So far, with normal server actions, you will only be able to, okay, with normal server actions, you will only be able to run an automatic a series of nodes which does not where you can't interpret or implement human interactions, right? But what if you want to you have a human interaction, and based on that, the further, only if that completes, then the other next set of actions should take place. So if there is such requirement, then BPT is the right place, the right thing that you need to implement. Okay, so I have implemented a BPT process, so let me show you that. So I'm just logging into my person environment. Give me a minute. In the meantime, Let me. Okay. So where can you implement BPT and how can you implement BPT? Okay, so these are the major things that we are going to see today. So this is a sample BPT process. Okay, so where can you implement? So you will find four tabs in Service Studio: process, interface, logic, data. So in the process tab, we will be implementing the BPT. Okay, so it's like we are simply going to implement process. So we call processes as BPT. So BPT is another name that we provide to the normal processes, the asynchronous processes that we create, okay, in our application. Mhm. Just 1 minute. I'm just trying to access my personal environment. Okay. Okay. So I'll show you the implementation part in Service Studio once I get my Service Studio session back. Okay, so for now, yes. So this is how a BPT process would look like. So in the process tab, we would be simply creating a process. Okay, in that process, in order to define a process, like in server action, if you want to define a server action, you would have nodes like assign, aggregate, start, end. Similarly, in order to define a process, you would have multiple nodes. Okay, starting with a start node, automatic activity, human activity, decision, wait, conditional start, execute subprocess, end. So we will have these many nodes. Okay, yeah. So we will be seeing about each of these nodes one by one. Okay, firstly we have start node. So when will a process get started? That is something you really have to be you really have to be sure about. So a process can be made to start when, as a result of an entity action, a result of an event happening in an entity. So whenever a new record gets added or when a record gets updated, that is when you can trigger a process. Say, for example, I am going to show you. I was planning to demonstrate this entire concept with the help of this application called Expense Report. Okay, so let me show you the application because I'm not sure when will my Service Studio be available again. Mm, let me close it and let me try restarting. Okay. I'm so sorry for this, guys, but I'm not sure why am I not able to log into my personal environment or any of the other environments. So my network connectivity also seems to be okay. Let's see. Okay. So I'm going to demonstrate the BPT concept by using this application called Expenses Portal. So let me show you the application. So this application has three modules. Okay, one module is where you have all your screens, and in this next module, the core module, we have all the tables and the server logics around it. And in the third module, we have the task box module. Okay. So I've already implemented a process. So let me show you that before creating my own process. Okay. Okay. So these are the two processes that I have created. So where should you define a BPT process? In the process tab, all you need to do is go and right click the process folder and click on add process. So as soon as you click on, as soon as you create a new process, the first thing it would ask is provide a label, okay, a name to the process. So what am I going to implement? So this application is an expense approval application where I, as a normal employee, I would apply for an expense. I would create an expense. I would add an expense and I would create an expense report. Let me show you. So let me log in as any of these people. Say John Mayer. Okay. So once John Mayer logs in, he can create a new expense report. New expense 15 merchant, say Amazon, 345 furniture. Okay, save, submit. Manager Mary Jane. So what's happening here is as soon as I submit an expense report, okay, it will go to my manager for approval. Mary Jane, let me submit. So once I submit, it will be with my manager. So my manager needs to approve this. So let me log out. Let me log in as Mary Jane. Okay. Then let me click on new expense report, new expense. Then, oh, sorry. Why am I creating a new expense report? I'm sorry. So if you go to my approvals, you will see there are 3 approvals that are pending. So the one that I created latest was this Amazon Furniture 15. So it's up to me to reject or approve. So once I approve this, okay, so it will be with the finance manager to approve. So finance person is the last person to approve this request. So if I go here, there is this task box where I'll see what are the expense reports that I need to approve. Okay, so it's up to me to approve or reject. So I will click on approve. Okay, so this is the flow that we are going to implement via process. So in order to explain you this clearly, I have the context and requirement document. Okay, so there are 3 roles that we are going to deal here. One is the employee role. The next one is the department manager, who's Mary Jane. The third one is the finance person. So the employee would submit, would submit an expense report, which his manager would approve. After that, it would go for approval to the finance person. Okay, during this entire process, the employee can anytime cancel the expense report. So if the employee cancels the expense report, then the process should get stopped, should get terminated, and then the manager and the finance person, they can anytime reject the report also. Okay, and Mary Jane, the manager and finance person, they themselves are employees, so they should also be able to submit their own expense report. Okay, so this is the scenario that we are going to implement via a process. So this is the journey of the expense report. Okay, so we have this entity called expense report. So BPT deals with the cycle, okay, of different stages of in this case, expense report. So expense report, it gets created newly, then it reaches the submitted status, then it goes to the process status, then it goes to the approved or the rejected status, and sometimes it might end up with the cancelled status also. So when a record moves to any of these status, so what should be done is what we are going to define via a process, an asynchronous process. Okay, submitted and then processing. So when a record gets submitted, so when you create a new expense report, add an expense and click on submit report, it reaches the submitted status. Once it reaches the submitted status, when the manager approves the expense report, it moves to the processing status. If the manager rejects, then it moves to the rejected status, and it goes back again. You just, the report goes back again to the employee who submitted the report. And once the finance person approves the expense report, only then it moves to the approved status. And then once it moves to approved status, once the finance person has approved, then if the amount is reimbursed, then the asynchronous process moves to the reimbursed status. Okay, and it's up to the finance person to reject the request also. If the finance person rejects the request, then it again goes back to where it all started, which is to the employee. Okay, and throughout the entire time, the employee can anytime cancel the expense report. Okay, so this is the diagram, which is the employee goes in, fills the expense report form, then submits the expense report. Okay, submits the expense for approval. Then automatically, once it gets approved, the manager gets notified, and the manager, it's up to the manager to decide whether to approve or reject. So if approved, it would move further for the next approval, which is to the finance person. Okay. Yep. Okay. And then if the finance person approves it, it would move to the approved status, and the money would get reimbursed. Otherwise, it would move back to the new status. Okay, so we won't be covering this entire, whatever you are seeing in the BPMN diagram. We won't be covering all of these, but only a sub portion of it. The flow that we are going to see is the employee would submit an expense report, and then it would, once they just submitted, it would move to the manager. The manager will approve the report. Okay, once the manager approves, it would move to the finance team, and the finance person would approve it. So we'll first complete this, and then we'll move on to the next part. Okay. Yeah. So I have the completed version here. Okay, and I'm going to do everything from scratch in here. Okay, so let me try to install. Okay. Okay, this, let me switch to another environment. So this environment is lacking some of the configurations that are needed in order to install this OAP, so which is why I'm trying from another environment. Actually, I tried from a personal environment. Since I already have this OAP, it would either override it, or it would not install at all. So which is why I'm trying it from another environment. Okay. Okay, my Service Studio just froze. Okay, fine. So the first and foremost step in order to start implementing a BPT process is to go to your entity. Okay, so it is this entity whose journey we are going to cover via our BPT process, our asynchronous process. So we need to go to this entity, go to more, and click on more options. In here, you would find this option called expose process events. So, okay, I'm opening it in the screen module. Let me open it in the core module. click on more options, you need to check this option. The reason is when you go and create a process, okay, you are adding, say, approve expense report, you add something here. Detail. Okay. Can you see this option launch on? So when should this process run? So if you click on this drop down, okay, can you see this option called create expense report, create role, create user, create expense? So if you choose create expense report here, it means that you need to start this process only when a new expense report is created. So for in order for you to get this option in the drop down, okay, you must set this option expose process event. Otherwise, this option create expense report will not be available for you. Okay, only because I've enabled it prior, I can see it here. Now let me check. Okay, the environment is not opened yet. Okay. Okay, fine. So I've already enabled this option. So now if I go here, if I try to create my own process, I'll be able to create it. Process one, launch on, create expense report. Then in the detail, so in the detail, as soon as I choose the type create expense report, it will automatically add an input parameter. So whatever the expense report that was created, you would get its ID by default here. Okay, and this is not the only way with which you can launch a process. You can also launch a process explicitly. How? Go to logic tab, say if you have any server action, say approve or reject report. So you will, yeah, drag and drop the server action. Can you see these options? These are nothing but the processes that you have defined. So even this way, you can very well call a process. One minute, please. Okay. One minute. Okay, guys, 1 minute. I'm so sorry. Let me just delete this entire module so that I can install the fresh one here in this environment, as I don't think so I would be able to install in any of the others. Going to service center. It's loading. Let's wait for it to load. So this application and whatever the content that I'm showcasing to you, it's all available in the guided path. So even if you would like to try this entire demo by yourself, you have all the materials available in under the asynchronous capability guided path, where you would find this path called creating your first BPT, BPT flow. So if you open it, you will find this OAP, this quick start file from where you can get started implementing your own process. Okay. So there are three applications. Expenses report is where we will have all our screens, and this is where we'll be creating our processes. And expenses portal core services, this is where all our entities are present. Okay. Okay, great. So I don't have any processes here, so I'm just going to create everything from scratch. So let me right click, let me create a new process. I've already shown you the flow, the expectation. So let me create a new process. The process would name would be expense approval. I've created it. Now there are certain properties that I am expected to fill, but I won't get any errors. I would just get warnings. So let me fill one by one. Firstly, it is label. Label would be nothing but the label with which we address this process, and detail. A description about this process. So whenever you get to see, even in service center and everything, a description would show up, right? Or whenever whenever there is a request for human approval also, you would only get this detail, okay, about this process. So approve the expense, okay, and then the expense ID. So expense ID, okay, let me go to expression editor. So can you see, I don't see any input parameter here, like I was able to see earlier. The reason is, can you see this option called launch on? I have not provided anything here. So let me click on this drop down. So when I open it, I couldn't see any option called create expense report. The reason is, I have not yet set the expose process event property in the core module. So let me go to the core service module, expense report, and let me go to the advanced property here, and let me go to more, enable this option, and then close, then publish. So, and after a refresh, in the module, I'll be able to see the create process, the update, the create process for the expense report entity. Let me go here, let me refresh. Okay, let me click on refresh all, and let me click on apply. Okay. So now, let me try choosing create expense report. Now it is visible. Okay. Now, as soon as I chose this, if I expand, it would automatically create an input parameter, which is whatever the expense report that was newly created, its ID would be sent to the process. Okay. So let me choose this ID as a description, as a detail. Let me add this ID here. Okay, that's all. I'm done providing the detail. I'm done providing the launch on property. Let me publish. Let me show you where this property, where this process would show. Okay, so let me show you this from service center. So I've successfully created a process. So let me click on the settings icon, and let me open service center. Sorry about the background noise. Okay. So here let me go to processes log. Can you see there is one process that I've created? It has zero instance. Okay, no active, zero active instance, zero active instances with error, zero suspended instance. So, but a process is showing, right, which means that I have created my new process. Okay. Okay, fine. Now it's time for me to define my process. The first step towards defining my process is, firstly, what would happen? Let me tell you when a new process would get created. Okay, so a new process would get created when someone clicks on this button. Let me log out, let me log in as a normal employer. When someone clicks on this button, new expense report, automatically a new expense report is created. Okay, so that expense report needs to be submitted first. So whoever has created the expense report, if I'm Ava, if I click on the new expense report, it should be me who has to submit the expense report, right? So now the expense report is in the new status. When I click on new expense, when I click on and fill all these things, Walmart, 123, uh, veggies. If I click on save, and when I click on this button, submit report, okay, the expense report moves to the submitted status. So the first step would be the expense report. Yes, it enters into this process in the new state, right? Now I should wait for it to be changed to the submitted state. So that is the first human activity that I'm going to add. And of course, yes, a user has to change it to submitted, right? It's not going to be a server action, but a user has to click on the submit button so that it moves to the submitted status. So let me name this human activity as export report submitted. Okay. Firstly, who is going to do this? Who is going to submit the report? The same user who had created the expense report. So if you go to the entity expense report, get expense report, you need to provide the ID. The ID would be nothing but the ID that we got. Okay, dot expense report dot created by. So whoever had created the expense report, it's that same person who needs to submit the report. So user property is nothing but who has to perform this. Okay, okay, let me rename this in a fairly better way. Submit expense report. So who has to submit? Which user needs to submit? The same user, the same person who had created the report. Okay, so for now, I don't have any end date. It's like if you want this human activity to to happen within 3 days, okay, from today, you can configure. But in my case, it's not the case. Okay, only when this person submits it, I would have to go ahead with the next set of the process. Okay, yeah. And anybody can do this because even a finance team person or a manager, they themselves are employees, right? So they should be able to do it. Okay, that's all. So who needs to do it? And then can you see this option called close on? So when you click on this, so when should I consider this human activity as completed? So I should consider this particular submit expense report activity as completed when the expense report status changes to submitted. Okay, so here the close on property, I would choose the action as update expense report. And okay, update fine, but what should get updated? It's the status that should get updated. So when this user who had created this expense report, okay, with when that user changes the expense report's status to submitted, that is when I will consider that this activity has completed. Okay, so we will call all of these are activities, not nodes but activities. So this is the first part. Okay, let me publish. Let me show you how this looks like. Similarly, like I added submit. Similarly, will be adding two more human activities. Okay, further. But for now, let me show you how has this affected the service center. Let me close this. Refresh. Okay, it is still zero because I have not accessed the environment. I mean the application yet and created an expense report. So let me do that. Let me log in as John Mayer. Let me click on new expense report, new expense. Merchant, I would say Amazon. Amount would be 345 and description would be watch party. Save. Okay. Now let me go to this place. Let me refresh. Can you see there is one active instance? Let me click on the process name. There is one active instance. This one. If I click on this, can you see it has started? The submit expense report. This activity is ready. It's not yet closed, which means it's not yet completed. So when will it get completed? When I submit the expense report, right? Oh, I have two tabs open. Okay, that's the reason. So let me click on submit. So when I'm submitting, I should provide the manager name. So I'll provide Mary Jane as manager. Let me click on submit. That's all. So now let me go back. Let me refresh the screen. Can you see the submit expense report? It has now changed to close. Okay, who has done it? It's John Mayer who has completed this particular activity, and then the process has ended. Okay, so all of these has got completed. Now let's move on to the next part, which is now once the person has submitted, it should go to the manager, right? So whenever, as soon as I believe you might have noticed when I submitted the report, okay, I would have chosen a manager, right? So whoever I'm choosing here, this person should do the next human activity. Okay, that's the case. So where will this get stored? So I chose a manager, right? Where will that be stored? So that will be stored in the expense report first approval in this attribute. So let me go to human activity. Say um, submit expense report, approve manager approval. Okay. User who has to execute this, it would be none other than the whatever the ID that you can find in the first approver of the record corresponding to this expense report ID. Get expense report ID dot expense report dot first approver. Close. Okay. And then when should I consider this as completed? When the status of the expense report changes to processing. So when the manager approves or rejects, sorry, report status. This is the flow that we had seen here, right? So let me show you. Submitted, then it will move to the processing state. If the manager approves, it would move to the processing status. Report status would be processing. Okay. And in this, please make sure to check only the manager here. Okay, the finance person also. Yeah. Because a normal employee or anybody with a username and password should not be able to see these requests. Okay. So I'm just restricting the roles here. Similarly, let me go and add another human activity. The human activity would be finance approval. once the manager approves, it's the finance person who has to approve, right? So in the user, I'm not going to provide any user. The reason is what I'm going to do is anybody who has the finance role, anybody belonging to the finance team can approve. It's not like this one person needs to approve. Of course, yes, you can very well use the final approver attribute also, but just to show you another use case, I'm just going to not provide any user, but anybody with the finance team role, they should be able to do this. So when should I consider this human activity as completed? When the status moves to approved. That's all. So these are the 3 human activities that I have created. So let's publish. Let's see how it looks like. Okay. Okay, there are 2. Both of them are closed. Let me go here. Let me create a new expense report now. Mary Jane. So let me refresh the screen. So a new process has got added and it is active. Okay. So if we click on this, it's waiting for manager's approval. It has been submitted. Now it's waiting for manager's approval. So let me log in as Mary Jane. And for Mary Jane, if you go to my approvals, you'll be able to see 3. But for now, these are the ones that we created before. Okay, but this is the one I created recently for which I have this screen opened. So let me click on approve. So once I do this, if I refresh, can you see the manager approval? It's now moved to closed. And who closed this? It was Mary Jane. Now I need to log in as the finance person. Okay, and click on my approval. So this is the only expense that is in the processing state. Okay, now let me click on approve expense. That's all. So let me go here. Now it was ready. Now let me refresh. Can you see it has now become closed and end? Okay. So this is how you need to implement human activities. The major thing that you have to remember is who would be executing that activity. Yeah, who would be executing that activity, and when should you consider that activity to be completed. And for some human activities it would be like, instead of the status, it's like wait for this much amount of time, and then yeah, you can proceed with the next. If that is the case, then yes, you can very well go for start date and due date. You can provide all that. And then if anybody can skip that particular human activity, then yes, you can definitely choose this option, allow skip to yes. Okay, and then there is, so the next thing that we are going to see is task box. So what is a task box? So whenever I approve or reject, it's like, when I log in as finance person, I'm going to my approval screen and then I'm approving it or rejecting. What if I want to have all these activities that I need to approve, that I need to do handy as a task box separately, so that I don't forget on any of these approvals? So that is what we are going to see next. So for that, let me go and add a reference. So there is this module called Expense Portal Task Box. So for reactive application, task box is something, if you want to implement a task box, you have this forge component called, which has this term called task box. You can very well download it. In this case, I already have this OML added. So I'll simply add a reference to it. let me go to interface tab, and this is the home page. Okay, so for the task box to be visible in all the screens, I'm just going to add that in the layout. Simply drag it and drop it. Okay, that's all. So you should be able to see the task box. Okay. Yeah. One more thing. You open the process. So manager. Okay. So what will happen is that the whatever the manager needs to do, it will be available as a task. Okay, in the task box. So when the manager clicks on the task, where should it take him or her? Okay, in our case, it should take that particular role to the expense report details screen. Okay, where you have this, please approve this task. If you have this, if you click on it, it should take you to the expense report details screen. And the ID should be the ID, the process ID, I mean the report ID for which you are doing the process. So let's publish. Let's see how the task box looks like. Let me log out. Let me log in as Mary Jane. I believe I have a. Okay, I don't think so. I have anything for it. I don't have to. Save, submit. Solve, log out. Can you see this? It was not there earlier, but now can you see this? This is nothing but a task box. So when I click on this link, can you see the approve the expense 74? When I click on this link, it should take me to the expense report details screen. That is what I had configured here in the destination. So now here it's up to me to approve or reject. So I'll approve. Okay, this is about task box. The next thing is conditional start. Okay, I'm doing the approval. So when somebody, whenever I submit a new expense report, it just goes, with the journey where it just waits for approval, and it eventually gets approved. What if I cancel my expense report? I cancel my submission. In that case, this entire process should not proceed, right? The entire process should get terminated, right? So how can I do that? So that is when we have this option called conditional start. So conditional start, it's like, say, as soon as I submit an expense report, okay, I as an employee, I can anytime cancel that report. So as soon as an expense report gets submitted, okay, this particular activity should begin. It should continuously listen to this event where my expense report gets cancelled or not. It should continuously listen. If my expense report gets cancelled, then I should terminate this entire process. Okay, so expense report cancelled. Start on. When should it start? During an update. What update? When the expense report gets cancelled. Okay, when the expense report gets cancelled, all you need to do is terminate the process. So here the end node would have this option called terminate process. So by default it's no, but you need to change it to yes. Terminate in the sense this process is done. That's it. None of the other activities associated with this process would execute any further. Okay, so now if this conditional start is kept this way, what will happen? Even when an expense, an expense report can get cancelled only when it gets submitted. So this, in order to not waste resources, I'm saying, because in this case, even as soon as you create a new expense report, this event would start listening. But it's not needed, right? Only when an expense report is submitted, it should start listening. So if you want this conditional start, okay, this expense report canceling part to be, this event to begin only after another activity, all you need to do is only when this activity submit expense report completes, I want this event to get started. So if you want to do that, click on this arrow. I mean, drag and drop an arrow. So what will happen? This event, this conditional start, this expense report canceling event would begin only after submitting the expense report. Okay, so let me publish. Let me show you how this looks like. So it's not like you have to cancel. Okay, it will check if at any point is the expense report getting cancelled or not. It will completely, it will carefully listen to the flow. At one point, if the expense report gets cancelled, it will terminate the entire process. So what will happen? None of these would execute. Okay, anytime it might get cancelled, so the entire process would get cancelled abruptly. We go here. Now let me create a new process. Oh, sorry, I'm not me. Let me log in as John Mayer. Expense report. Save and submit to Mary Jane. Okay, so I've submitted. Let me go back. Let me show you how this looks like. Okay, there are 3 active instances. Okay, let me click on the first one. Okay, can you see the status of expense report cancel is listening? It means it has started to listen. Okay, whether the report is getting cancelled or not cancelled or not. So now let me go here and let me cancel this 76. I believe I'm watching 76. Let me click on cancel report. Okay. The report is cancelled. Now let me refresh the screen. Can you say expense report cancelled? Yes, this has got executed and that's why the process has got terminated now. Okay, so this is the use case for conditional start. Okay, then automatic activity. Sorry, automatic activity in the sense if you want to execute a normal server action, where there is no human intervention needed. So here, once the finance person approves, the amount should get reimbursed, right? So let me add or add an automatic activity. It's like a normal server action. Okay, reimburse. If you open it, it will open a server action to you. Okay, here all I'm going to do is call a logic. I have a ready-made logic available. Just payment, reimburse expense report. That's all. Okay, it's a normal server action. Okay, and the timeout, it will be 5 minutes. So if you feel like the server action is too long, it would take more than 5 minutes to execute, then you can also create small processes and you can execute the server action as processes instead of one lengthy server action. Okay, that's all. Reimburse. Okay. So once this is done, so okay, so it's like a normal definition, okay, that you need to do for um, you know uh, whatever the logic that you would like to add. Okay, when you reimburse the amount to the to the person who had raised the expense report, so that logic would be going inside the reimburse. Okay, so that is all about automatic activity. It's like if you want this activity to be available after a certain point, okay, after some set of days, then you can very well set start date to it. But in my case, as soon as the finance person approves it, the reimbursement should happen. Okay. So then, guys, so I if I so I can it will all be the same. So here you will get to see reimburse. Okay, so when I successfully approve, automatically it would get reimbursed. Okay, I'll show you the flow output after completing the decision also. So what is decision? So reimbursement should happen only when the finance person approves, right? What if the finance person rejects? Okay, so if you want to make a decision, okay, based on a certain the previous activity, then you have to use a decision node. Remember, though it resembles a normal if node, okay, it can have many outcomes. It's not just true and false. Okay, it can have multiple branches coming out of it. Okay. Is approved. Okay, so if you double click, and it is not asking any condition. Reason is you can't define any condition inside this, but if you double click on it, it will open. Okay, so here you need to add an if. Okay, and yeah, so if the expense report, okay, whatever we are dealing with, its status is rejected, what we need to do. So that's what we are going to see is expense report, get expense report dot expense report dot status. If it's equal to expense report status rejected, if it got rejected, okay, is rejected. Guys, actually, I am a little confused here. So I'm not sure what false is and what true is, right? So what you need to do, go back and change the label. Approved, approved flow. And if it's rejected, it should go back to the place where the process got started, right? It should go back to the person who had submitted the report. So here I will change this yes as rejected. Okay, is rejected, approved. Go inside, is rejected. If it's true, then, oh, sorry, if it's false, then go to the approved part. Otherwise, go to the decision outcome. It's not an end, it's the decision's outcome. If it's rejected, then the outcome would be rejected. If it's not rejected, if it's false, then the outcome would be approved. Okay, so this would have two outcomes for now, but if you want more outcomes, you can very well add. So let me show you. If you want a third outcome, oh, sorry, not here. Go here. Oh, okay, yeah. 1 minute, guys. So if the rejected outcome is reached, so here you have to pay attention to the end node. It's not actually an end node. So if the outcome is, if it's rejected, then it would be approved. Sorry, it's not rejected, it would be approved. And if it's rejected, it is rejected. So let me go back. And the outcome of this decision is just two, because I have only added two branches here. Okay, that's why I'm able to do add only two here. But if I had three branches here, okay, it also depends on the condition. Okay, so it's the only thing that you have to remember is, though it looks like a normal if node, okay, the decision node, it can have more than one outcome. So based on the outcome, it can take a different path. The decision node, I'm saying. So yeah, that's all. Approved, rejected. Yes, let me publish. Let's see what happens now. It's waiting. Okay. expense approval. Yeah, so okay. Currently I have one active, but let me create a new one just to show you the reimburse node. This rejected is approved part. Log out. Mary Jane. Okay, let me refresh. There is one activity which is active. So it's here, it is in the ready state. Let me approve here. Let log out. Let me log in as the finance person. And also here. And can you see there is this button called assign to me that is shown in the task box. The reason is when I had created this human activity, I configured it in such a way that anybody with this finance role can approve. So it's Elton Church. So Elton Church is assigning this to him. Okay, and before approving. Okay, approve the expense. So my approval. Okay. So here, let me click on approve expense. Let me show you the reimburse part. Is approved. Yes, that's why reimburse has executed and it has entered. Okay. Let me create another expense report. Submit. Log out. Log in as so this flow. I'm just trying to explain for the reject part. That's why I'm creating a new expense report again. Approve and log out. Flipkart watch.
Krishnamal, are you showing the browser?
Yeah, right, Mary.
For me, it's showing service today only.
I'm sorry, but I've been okay. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, I shared the entire window though.
Okay, I think only for me it's like that. Other people are able to see. Sorry,
Okay.
Krishnamal. Sorry for
Oh
that.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Pending approval. Let me reject this. Expense rejected. So let me go back. Let me see a new process would have got created. Oops, I should have opened it earlier. Okay, and now I need to find out what was that other process that got created. Yeah, okay. Finance approval still says open. Okay. Let me click here. All right. Okay. So guys, we have seen till conditional start, human activity, automatic activity, and decision. So we'll see about execute process and then we'll wrap wait activity and the other thing we'll see in the continuation considering the time that we are left with. So execute process. So what if you can execute sub processes inside a main process? So what I'm going to do is let me create a new process called approval process and let me add an input parameter to it. Okay, so I'm going to remove this two part. Okay, I should have done this earlier. Okay, cut this two and paste it here. One more important thing. What if I want to introduce a scenario where even it's like the finance person would get an extra power. Okay, so if the finance person approves, then if the manager, even though the manager does not, if the manager approves, it should wait for the finance person to approve. But it's also there is a possibility that I would like to introduce in order to explain this. I would like to provide the finance person the full authority to approve. So even if the manager hasn't approved, even if this branch has not executed, if the finance person approves, then this process should get terminated. The reason is a subflow. Okay, so when I create a subflow, when inside a process, when I'm calling another process, the flow would go back to the parent process only when the sub process and all its activity terminates. Not end. Terminating is different from a normal end. Okay, so I'm going to configure it this way so that if the manager, if this flow completes, this sub process would not complete, would not get terminated. It will get terminated only when the finance person also approves. So the terminate node is here, which means this branch it's mandatory for this branch to execute. Only then this process will get terminated. Only when this process gets terminated, it will go back to the original process. So now it wouldn't go back. The reason is I haven't called it from here. So let me drag and drop approval process. Okay. That's all. And in approval process, it would ask me for an expense ID. So I'll send the expense ID. So this only when this sub process completely happens, and only if it happens and it terminates, the flow would come back to the parent flow and execute the remaining part. Okay, detail would be approve the expense report plus and the ID whatever that we had provided earlier. Okay, that's all. If you open this, you'll find these two. So this is a subflow. So normally you can split a bigger flow into small flows to ensure reusability, and also to avoid in flow processes to avoid timeouts or to do lengthy processes. Okay, this is a good way to do. Okay, now let me go here and let me go to back to process monitoring. Can you see a new process has got added, but it has no instances at all? Okay. Now let me go and create a new process. Sorry, create a new approval, new expense report. Final, final, save. Okay, and then submit this report. Mary Jane, submit. So I've submitted. Now let me go to expense approval. You have one active instance. If you open this active instance, can you see? It's now the status is waiting. Let me go. Let me open this process. Manager, finance. There are two. It's ready. It's waiting for both of them to approve it. Okay. Let me go to. Let me log in as Mary Jane. Okay. And let me approve. closed, but it's not yet terminated. Okay. So if you go back to the main process, where this approve process was called, I guess this is the, it is still in waiting. Okay, because it has only reached the end, it has not terminated. Okay, remember that. So only as a finance person, if I go and approve, it will get terminated. Okay, now let me go and refresh. Can you see? It's terminated. So now if I go back to this place, let me refresh. Can you see? Now it's moved to closed. It was not, only if it reaches the terminate node, the status of the sub process will become closed. Otherwise, it wouldn't. Okay, it would still be in the waiting status. Okay, so even you can do this way. You submit, and the finance person, if the finance person directly approves also, this approve process will end. It will close. Because I have added the terminate node only for the finance approval side. Okay. So yeah, guys, so this is all about these notes, and I am yet to explain about comment and wait. Wait is nothing but if you want to put the process on hold for a specific amount of time. Okay, say for example, this request, if the manager fails to respond in 3 days, or you have to submit this, or background verification needs to complete in 3 days, or maybe the request gets submitted today, and after 3 days, you need to proceed with the remaining set of the process. So if you want to put the process on hold for a while and then resume it, we will be using the wait activity. Okay, so with this, we are done with the BPT process part. And I'm so sorry, guys, for the initial issues that I was facing while installing the expense portal. But I hope you were able to learn something out of this session. And yeah, I guess we are almost on time. Guess we would take another 5 minutes extra, maybe after 5:30 for completing the quiz. So thank you so much, and over to Mary.
Yeah, thank you, Krishnabal, for the nice session. And yeah, I think Deepak Mani asked, like in between your talk, he asked, "What about reject process?" I think you have covered. So yeah.
Okay. What about reject process? I can. Okay, he has said I can see. Uh, I
Yeah,
guess
that's
he was
the
able to.
yeah, that one, like I told, right? Like I'm not
Okay.
able to view the browser. That time he mentioned,
Okay.
but before that he asked this question.
Sure, Mary. Let me DM Deepak because even I myself am not getting the clarity from the question. So in the meantime, you can execute the quiz. Okay.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, guys, it's time for the quiz. I hope all are ready. So I think know how to play this. So please dot it. I will send the code. 1 second.
Okay. Thank you, Deepak. Yeah.
I will share my option.